Yeah. So now I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot here, so you don't have to have an answer. You can just say, "I'd have to
Okay.
think about that." This is not like I'm not expecting an answer, but if it's a smaller school, again, let's pick on my experience. I had two math teachers. So as a group, that's a pretty small. I mean, they were pretty connected, but that's a pretty small group, and it's really more of a interpersonal versus a team, right? Would you recommend doing PD kind of for the whole school on this way of thinking, using math as the example, but saying here, it's kind of the reverse of like the traditional flipped classroom. When we had somebody come in and talk about it, they were an English or social studies teacher and they were talking about it, and the math and science folks were like rolling their eyes, like, there's no way I can't. And their big thing wasn't that they didn't agree. Their big thing was my curriculum doesn't work like that,
Right.
because it's the culture like shifted. I wonder if we had PD and had the whole school go through having you do the workshop and do math differently. I feel like that could shift our whole culture, kind of giving all of our teachers permission to move away from the lecture and from the teacher-centered learning to student-centered learning. And using math as an example is very empowering, both for the math teacher as well as for everybody else, to say, oh, if you can do it in math, like that transformative moment, like, I wish I had math like this when I was in school. How many of the teachers of social studies would have been like, I might have taught math if I could have taught math like this.
I think you're onto something, Scott. I hadn't really thought about that, but I do know, talking about that one teacher who taught social studies and goes, I'm going to do this differently now because I learned this in math. I think you're onto something there. The other thing that I think was a surprise for me is I did some work with principals, and one of the principals who I really appreciated, he came to me and go, I don't know why I'm not doing this in my staff meetings. Why am I not leading staff meetings with these types of practices? Because if I can think like this in this math workshop, certainly my teachers can think like this about their challenging work of teaching. And so I think, yes, it's really a shift in mindset about how do we engage any learner, a parent learner, a teacher learner, a para-educator learner, any learner in deep and reflective thinking. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think you're onto something.